We are back. Summertime coffee talk. Coffee Cenzo's back. And our guy Bo is back. How are you guys?
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat with the boys.
People have been commenting for Cenzo's return. So this makes me so happy that the people are getting his return.
Yeah, well, I got to show my face every once in a while. And, you know, I haven't talked to my man Bo in a bit, so might as well
Yeah,
hop on for
it's like,
tonight.
hey, you want to hop on for this guy? Want to hop on for this guy? Yo, Bo's coming on. I'm in. What time?
Look, and there's been a few that I've tried to make recently. I really was trying to make the burger one a
Yep,
few
you
weeks
are.
ago, and I couldn't get to that. But I'm happy to be back. It's good to be on. Let's
You
talk about some
did.
stuff.
We won't divulge why you didn't go to that one, but I will say you gave it a valiant effort.
Yeah, dude, it was. Yeah, yeah, we gave it a
Let's talk
go,
about
but
let's talk about why he headbutted the frick out of Zane.
oh,
Zane doesn't
dude,
get
so
that pissed that often.
That was
Zane,
bad. That was bad.
so here's the thing: those two are both like two of the nicest guys I know, which is so funny that like they like got it, like we're getting after it, like they were tripping at each other. I think it's so funny.
The
But
meanest
yeah,
thing, yeah, the meanest thing Zane can say is that's messed up, bro.
yeah, I was trying to read his lips too. That I saw it, and I was like, "That's hilarious," because
and I think
that's a lot.
Tyler
That's such
said
a
like,
Zane line too.
"I'm not afraid of you" or something like that. Like they're both like so nice, and they don't because everybody once Berger said the stuff
That's
about
what you
Nolf.
tell the monster that's hiding in your closet.
Once like Berger was saying he was coming for Nolf's head, everybody's like, "That's just him." Like he's just a nice guy though. And then I got to know
He
him, and he
is.
is a super nice guy. Like
He's a great
but
dude. Yeah.
he does love trying to be the wrestling villain, but it's so short lived.
Oh
He
man.
just he puts so much into it and just and cares a lot. You know,
Yeah.
he just every once in a while he'll have a little fuse, but great dude, just passionate. You can't hate it.
The
Can't blame him. It
hardest part
happens.
about Final X, and you guys can relate to this a lot more than me, but when you're an athlete and you're on the floor and like you're used to it. For me, like I only go down there as media or something, and like watching the loser of Final X walk off, that's devastating. And like Nick Lee and Yanni, both my guys, and watching them both walk off and the emotions is crazy.
Yeah, it's not fun.
No. Shout out John
Yeah,
Broen. He said
yeah,
funerals and weddings. I said, yeah, that's a pretty good analogy.
yeah. And I mean, look, last time I saw Bo Nickal was actually right after he was coaching a match where against me where I lost. So losing does never feel good. I wouldn't know what it's like to lose at Final X. I haven't gotten there yet. Um, but I'm sure it's devastating though. Like that shit sucks. Like it's
Yeah,
never
and
fun. Like right off and
it
then like
sucks.
right off the mat, dude,
Yeah,
you
it
question
sucks
like
too
everything.
because you lose two in a row. You or not necessarily two in a row, but you lose twice. It's
Yeah.
like you lose and then like you try to get your head back, and then you're like you get beat again, and you're just like, I am absolute trash. Like I'm a garbage person, and this is not fun. But yeah, you
It's
get over
it
it.
sucks too watching like people who are good humans, like watching Gilman come up and congratulate Nick. Like you love the respect and the brotherhood, but you feel for him because you know the spot he's in. And it's like, yeah, that's gotta I don't like it. I don't like being back there for that. All right, Bo, you got a fight
Sucks,
next
dude.
week. Let's start right there. Tresean Gore next weekend. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great. I got a couple more days of training in PA, and then Sunday I'll head to Vegas. So I'm going to spend the week in Vegas, and yeah, it's really interesting because in wrestling you compete so often, and a lot of times you compete at a tournament, you might wrestle 5 times in a day, but now for MMA I'm training 10 weeks for one fight, and it's one big event that's so far off in the distance, and now I'm basically right there. And so it's just a lot that goes into it. But I feel really well prepared. And especially after having already gone through this in March with UFC fight week, media, knowing what that's like, knowing every bit of my responsibilities. And so I'm just ready to go, ready to take it, business as usual and just be myself. And yeah, I'm just excited to fight. That's like one of the better things about MMA as well, is the atmosphere of the fight is like an NCAA finals type atmosphere. You know, it's like a massive college duel atmosphere, and you're going to get that every time, no matter what, just because of what the UFC brings and what fights bring. So, you know, for me, that's probably the most fun part about competing, is doing it in front of that big crowd and just having that excitement in the air. And I know with International Fight Week, it's going to be like that. So I'm just really, you know, counting down the days at this point.
It's crazy too. I apologize in advance for kicking off media week a little early. Like it just kind of like worked out where you happen to be fighting next week. We're overdue for a show. I don't know if UFC fighters are allowed to bet on themselves. Are they?
Not anymore. We used to be able to, but when everything went down with James Krause and guys fixing fights and stuff, then, you know, they banned betting on fights. So I can't bet on any fights, which is probably, if we're being 100% real about it, that's probably the way it should have always been. Like, you know, NFL football players can't bet on NFL games. You know, NBA.
Dude, the guy got suspended for a year today.
Calvin Ridley got suspended for a year, a few years
last
ago.
year, yeah. Calvin Ridley got suspended last year.
Calvin Ridley.
Was that last year?
Yeah.
Well,
you know,
no,
so
but
like,
the Colts players got suspended recently. But
yeah. At the end of the day, I don't think that. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I'll say this: when I was betting on fights, I was cleaning up. Like, I did not really lose too often, and it made sense because, like, it's guys I'm training with, it's guys I know. It's, you know, you have a lot of inside information, and yeah. So, you know, I think it makes sense that they're, you know, not allowed to bet on fights and stuff. But yeah, that's.
I feel like it would have to be a wash a little bit with like how many homer bets I feel like people would make. Like, people do get disproportionately loyal to their team in the sense of like, oh yeah, he's winning. Like, you're a 1,600 favorite, a minus 1,600 favorite next weekend, which I think is free money. But like, there's people, I can't imagine, let's say Tresean's camp, he's plus 750. His camp thinks he's going to win, I'm sure. So if they're betting large sums of money, that could be very bad. Like, not just the fixing fight side of it, but the side of like people spending irresponsibly could be a dangerous slope.
Yeah, and it is interesting because MMA is so volatile, and, you know, if you're putting money into it, I mean, most people are going to be betting emotionally, and crazy things happen in fights, right? Like, most times
I only bet emotionally.
I was about to say, who does that?
Yeah, right. No, but I mean, I think it's, most people are betting casually. You know, you can make it fun and stuff, and that's actually, you know, a company that I'm involved with now. Better, a lot of what they do is micro betting, which is a kind of new concept. It's interesting. It's supposed to be, you know, a little more responsible, a little fun. So it's small bets throughout an event, right? Versus
that's what Cenzo and I love. We do that for football, where it's like,
yeah,
you know,
so it's live betting, you know, and that's something that I think is. They got to figure out the best way to do that in MMA, because it's a very fast sport, you know, round to round and stuff. But it could be really exciting. But yeah, I know, like, every time I have a fight coming up, I can tell people don't really want to ask me, but they're kind of like, yo, what do you think? Knockout, submission, what round?
Well, I remember telling Kassar, I told him,
I love that.
I told Kassar last time I was texting him about your vlog, and I told him like that line that he saw at that one pawn shop or store, whatever it was in Vegas. I'm like, you got to go back and buy that. And I'm like, by the way, I'm like, I don't want any inside info because I don't want you to get in trouble even at all, or the potential. But I'm like, I love the odds on Bo first round submission. And everybody who knows I know you was asking like, yo, what do you think? I'm like, I have no clue. I'm like, but I don't like laying long odds. So first round submission, I'll have some fun with that. So I love that one.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that have won a lot of money on my last 3 fights, first round submission. And, you know, I know guys that are teammates. I told before the fight, all 3 of those fights, I had teammates asking me, yo, what's going down? And I told them first round submission. So there was multiple thousands of dollars won the last 3 with a few buddies. But yeah, it was good.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Good for them.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, if somebody's asking me, I'm going to tell them what I think, but I'm always like hesitant because I'm like, dude, I don't really know.
Well, you also don't know. Like like you, even if you go for a first round submission, like if a knockout's there, you're taking it.
Yeah, like, I'm gonna win, man, because I get
Yeah.
paid. I don't get paid I just get paid to win. Like, that's it. I'm here to win. So however I got to do that, that's what I'm gonna do. It was funny because I know, so my second contenders fight, right away I knocked the dude down with the left hand, and then I know they were all freaking out because they thought I was gonna TKO him, but then I ended up triangling him, so it worked out. But yeah, you just never know with fights. They're just crazy.
So you did submit the last guy, Jamie Pickett, back in March. What did you take away? You know, you said that now you have a fight under your belt. And I feel like there was so much hype for you and you lived up to it. And now this one feels different. You know, it's kind of like, let's say last time it was like NCAA's, you win as a freshman. Now it's a whole different ball game your next year. Expectations, everything are different. What did you take away from that last fight heading into this next one?
You know, honestly, from all my fights, I feel like what I gained the most is just experience through the camp, because I've only been fighting for a year, right? Like my first
Which is crazy.
I've only been fighting professionally for a year. I've been fighting, you know, I was amateurs for a year and a half. But my first pro fight was last June. And so every single camp I have, I really get so much better, and I learn so much because I'm so new to the sport. And so I think for me, that's the most valuable thing. But I think in addition to that, just going through the week and getting to experience what the UFC, like what the machine is, like how they work and everything that goes into putting on a huge event like that. And then just experiencing being out there in the cage and the lights, you know, the pressure, all of that, understanding like what I'm going to feel going in and what I'm going to feel in the cage, and kind of just being prepped and ready for that. I remember my last fight was crazy. I was in the cage and it's like Tom Brady, Kim Kardashian, like crazy freaking celebrities on ringside. You know, obviously like Dana White's there, Joe Rogan's interviewing me after. I'm like, this is a freaking wild thing, but just experiencing
Vincenzo
that.
Joseph in the nosebleeds.
Hey, but I got you in there, bro. I got
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Yeah, but
that's all that we need.
No doubt, no doubt. But yeah, I mean, just that experience and feeling that pressure, I feel like is super valuable for me. So I'm just excited to do that again and just go out there, be myself, and have fun, because that's really what I live for at the end of the day, is just go out there and compete. And that's the thing that's the most fun for me.
You did look super poised, less the high kick slip.
So I have one question. Sometimes, you know, just obviously you're very new fighting. You come out, you throw a few shadow punches, stuff like that to get going. Is that something that, like, I mean, I love it. I think I see you getting ready, you know, but like, is that something that you think that like is going to go away, or you're going to be like, I might come out, just, you know, get in the groove a little bit?
You mean like punching like in front of the guy?
Yeah, but like, it's like almost to the point where I feel like before you even start gauging your range, you're like getting your like striking in motion first.
Yeah. Yeah. So we call that punch in the air. So basically what I'm doing from a technical standpoint is I'm kind of just controlling the space between me and my opponent, even though it looks weird. And even though it's not like, obviously I'm not trying to land it. Just putting something between me and him, just so he has something to worry about, something to think about. Like, I'm not obviously trying to land the punch. I'm just throwing something in between. So it kind of is dressing everything up, right? So, you know, it masks things, right? Like certain things in wrestling you do, maybe you'll just get low on your stance or touch the mat or something. It's like a little thing that most people wouldn't even notice. It's cool that you notice that. But yeah, I'm just putting something between me and him and kind of starting to dress it up to set up, you know, what I'm trying to do.
Right. Cool.
You did say after the fight last time in the ESPN interview that you were a little disappointed that it was the easiest route possible. To a degree, and I will talk a little bit about your podcast that you launched that I thought was great. And you mentioned that, like, I don't know who the scientist is that you're talking about, but you mentioned that you're not doing all this just to beat an easy fighter or take an easy fight. But at the same time, don't you want to just go out and dominate? Like, what's that difference between wanting to just go out and get a Jorge Masvidal 15-second knee knockout versus wanting to be tested and put on a show?
You know, for me, it's really, it's I'm taking incremental steps in my development. I'm making sure, I'm not pushing myself too far, too fast. I'm, one step at a time, make sure I'm not skipping steps. And by the time I'll fight the best guys, I'll be ready to go. But I think in the fight, I'm only going to be satisfied with my performance if I feel like I really do something exceptional, regardless of my opponent. So, I felt like in the last fight, I kind of just took him down, arm triangled him. It wasn't really like exceptional. It wasn't really I don't mean that I want to get in like a slugfest brawl type fight where we're both trying to knock each other out, but I want to just perform and do something that I feel like is at the level that I train and at the level that I see myself, And so if I just go out there, take a guy down, arm triangle him, it's kind of like almost, I won't say a letdown, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is go out there, win, and take care of what I need to take care of. But at the same time, I'm only going to have, let's say, by the end of my career, 20 fights, So every single one of those is very important. And I want to put on an exceptional show, not necessarily make it competitive to where the guy's touching me up or anything, but do something exciting, So that to me, like, it wasn't really exciting what I did. I was like, yeah, I could have probably done that to him, anytime, like 100 times out of 100. So, but for me, it's just more so judging my own performance based on myself exclusively.
It's interesting you say that too. As I mean, like, I can honestly look at that too. Like in college, you beat a dude 15-0, you come off the mat with like kind of pissed off, right? It's like not pissed off, but it's like, I should have pinned that guy.
Right.
And that's kind of what, like, I feel like it's similar to the mentality you have with that.
100%. It's the exact same. For me, I'm just concerned with my performance and my own perception of that, right? Like, the result really doesn't matter. Like, I could have a first round finish or like you said, a 15-0 tech fall, but if I don't feel like I competed the way that I wanted to compete or did something exceptional that I wanted to do in the fight, then it's kind of almost a letdown, if that makes sense.
Not quite as fulfilling either.
Right.
I got
Makes sense. Speaking of college wrestling, so T-Mobile Arena's 20,000 people capacity, and your last NCAA match was NCAA Finals. You beat Colin Moore 5-1. PPG Arena, Pittsburgh, just under 20,000, like 19,005 something. I'm interested in you comparing the two. The experience, like you said, with UFC, you have like Kim Kardashian, Tom Brady, Dana White, Joe Rogan. What's the walk? Like, it seemed like you tried to be so serious. Cenzo's there. It seemed like you tried to be so serious initially, and then you were just loving it. You were bobbing your head, like you got into it. You're high-fiving fans. What's like, compare the two, competing in front of 20,000. Like, NCAA's is so unique because it's 20,000 cult wrestling fans. It's not like there's not many wrestling fans there that aren't super excited to be there, where I feel like sometimes you get UFC fans that are in Vegas, they're at a guy's night, whatever, let's go to the fights. They're not like, wrestling fans are super passionate. What's that difference like? And where is it maybe same?
Yeah. So I'll explain the difference, and then I'll kind of talk through like the emotions of the UFC fight, because it was really interesting for me being my first one. But I would say, just the atmosphere overall, when you walk out for an NCAA finals match, you're still 100 feet away from the nearest person. And it's like you got your carpet and then they're way away. You get on the mat, there's nobody really within, aside from the referee and your coaches, there's nobody really close to you. When you walk out for that UFC fight, everybody's on top of you. They're like, boom, right there. And not to mention, everybody's like rowdy, they're drinking, they're having fun. Like you're saying, it's a bachelor party, it's boys' night, it's something crazy. They're trying to see some carnage, and
Right.
wrestling is just so much more respectful. It's like, I'm here to see good sportsmen, like respectful guys. And I'm here to see, good techniques, and most of the MMA people, like, they just want blood. And so it's just different. You can feel that. And it was really interesting because I didn't know what to expect walking out from my first UFC fight. I was kind of assuming, all right, this is just going to be another wrestling match. That's kind of what I was telling myself. I'm like, this is another wrestling match. And to be honest, the most nervous that I was for the entire camp through the entire fight was when I was in the back about to walk out with the curtains in front of me. It was like highest amount of nerves. And so I was just telling myself, all right, focus on what you need to do, your techniques, like get into good position, start moving, like that, like just keep it simple, right? Like, what am I going to do in the fight, right? Don't think about, oh, how big the crowd is and this and that. And then I start to walk out. And so that's how you see my face very serious, because I'm just thinking about what I need to do in the fight. And then the crowd is like loving it. They're like hyped up for me. And like, they're right there, all these dudes. And they're like, let's go, Mom. Let's go. Random dudes I don't know. And they're like hyping me up. And I'm like, all right, let's go. So I just felt that good energy. And I was like, all right, yeah, my brain switched from, all right, focus on what you need to do, to let's have some fun. Like, let's enjoy this. Like, let's go, baby. Like, this is fun. And it was just that energy from the crowd just flipped the switch in my mind. And then honestly, as soon as that happened, every nerve went away and I was just ready to go.
That's awesome. This might be a stupid question, but you're 6 fights in, 4 amateur, 2 pro. You haven't been punched in the face yet. Is there a part of you that wants to be punched in the face just to get out of the way? To take the hit?
Not really. It's
I was about to say, I'm a 4.5-hour drive from Vegas if you want to get punched.
If I need to get smacked up.
If you need it before the fight, yeah.
Appreciate you, bro. Yeah, for sure. No,
Got you, man. That's what I'm here for.
honestly, I'm not really looking forward to getting hit. You know, I'm sparring all the time with really high level guys. So, you know, I'm getting hit in sparring and training all the time with big gloves, with little gloves. And it's not fun, you know. It's never so for me, it's honestly more of like a pressure thing, because I feel like I have this reputation, like, oh, I've gone 6 fights, I haven't even been touched. I'm like, I got to keep it going. Like, I can't get touched, right. You know? And so I'm just like, I know it's going to happen. And when I do, I'm going to be like, like I had that streak going for a while. It's like, you know, in college, I'd pin a few guys, you know, I'd pin 3, 4, 5 guys in a row. And then, you know, if I didn't get a pin, I'd be like, dang, I lost the streak. So, you know, hopefully I can just keep it going as long as I can. And, yeah, I mean, I'm not really looking to get hit much at all throughout my whole career. So if I don't have to, I can go all the way to the bell and not get hit, I'm going to do it. But, yeah, that's just, you know, been fortunate as well to, you know, be in good position in the fights.
Do you like, even, I know you said like you don't, I mean, who would like getting hit in the face? You don't like it at all. But like, do you get, like, even sparring, do you get any more used to it?
Mm-hmm. You definitely get used to it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I just feel like a bop to the nose just like wouldn't feel great.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because so when you're sparring and you start to understand fighting a little bit better, when you get hit, I think you kind of go through evolutions. Like, first, when you get hit in the face, you're like, oh, what the hell was that? Like, ow. And then you kind of stop fighting. And then, you know, I think you kind of move to this evolution of, all right, when you're sparring, you get hit in the face and it's like a pride thing. You're like, damn it, like, I got to get that one back. And so you kind of get emotional about it, and you keep fighting, but you almost get over aggressive because you got hit. And then I think when you graduate from that level, you kind of get to a point where when you get touched, now you can like think in the moment, all right, why did that happen? How did he set me up? You know, all right, what am I going to do now to not get touched again? And it just becomes like a sport, right? It becomes more, you know, if a guy take you down in wrestling from an underhook, you're gonna be like, all right, I'm not going to get an underhook again. So that's kind of what it becomes. And you know, honestly, like, you don't feel it a ton until after, like, and even in your face, you don't really feel it a ton unless you got like a swollen eye or something. But if you get kicked in like the calf and the leg, then it's like, that's what actually really hurts. You know, you're like, leave training, you're like, frick, like my calf is all jacked up.
I actually brought
That's interesting. I like that comparison though.
I brought up your pin streak earlier in this season when Spencer Lee had one going, and I went back and I looked at it and I just pulled it up again. The start of your sophomore year was stupid. It was pin, major, pin, major, pin. That's just bananas.
I started counting, and then you started rattling off too fast.
Yeah, no, you can't.
Yeah,
that was a good year, honestly. I think, you know, I think about that year sometimes, and it ended exactly the way it was supposed to. You know, with 5 champs and just such a freaking legendary
that was a great year.
Season. Yeah, such a great year. And you know, I do feel like I lost at the Big Tens, the miles, and I was like, dang, I really could have been a 3-time Hodge winner if I wouldn't have lost that match, because I was dominating. I don't even know, 20 something pins. And at the NCAA tournament, I think I tech falled my first opponent, then I pinned 3 guys in a row to get to the finals. So I was doing pretty well. But again, it was about that year was about the team. The same was the next year, it was about the team. And then
I don't know how you remember that. Like the fact that you remember the tech 3 straight pins when you wrestled like 140 matches in college is crazy.
I remember them too. How much time do you think you spent on the mat with Sammy Brooks in college?
I think less than 2 minutes. I think it was maybe a minute 10, a minute 15 total. It was the better stat is how much time I spent against Iowa, because I'm all pins versus Iowa.
Sammy Brooks pin was
even after
38 seconds and a minute 02. A minute 40.
Got him.
So another wrestling comparison. Every now and then you see a wrestler have a dominant season, but then when they go the distance, like this year with Spencer Lee, he was very dominant. But then when he got towards the end, like the matches that, and some people say he was injured, whatever, but like you're not used to that conditioning. And then all of a sudden you go a full 7 minutes and you're feeling it. For you, you had a 33-second finish, 62-second finish, 52-second finish. Now it's just under 3 minutes. When you have these pattern of first round finishes and you're preparing for the next fight, are you getting into a habit where like your expectation is an early fight, or is the conditioning training still like this could go the distance?
It's always to go the distance, and for me, my mentality is I never go in expecting to end it early. I expect to go the distance every single fight. I think that being a college wrestler really was able to help teach me that. And you're able to learn like just how to strategize your energy and how to manage it. Because I think as a freshman, a lot of times I would go out there way too hot off of the start. And then when I didn't get that pin, I would fade towards the end. And yeah, I was still up by a lot, but it's just not a good look to fade towards the end. I want to go out stronger. And so for me, my mentality, I have had all first round finishes, but going into the fight, I'm always ready to go 15, and my training reflects that. And so, if it happens, it happens, but I'm just going out there to compete every second. And regardless of what the situation is, I'm just going to do my best. And yeah, I believe I can get him out of there in the first round. But I'm not banking on that at all.
What's that conditioning difference like? Like you think of how hard 7 minutes is for collegiate wrestling, and to think 15 minutes, it's obviously so different, but what's that difference been like for you? I'm sure the training's a bit different going 15 minutes than training for 7.
Yeah, it's different training. You just kind of lengthen everything out. It's not as intense. It's a little more volume. And, the pace for an MMA fight is just very different than a wrestling match. I think a lot of things are different. One, you're bent over, you're having somebody pulling on your head and neck the entire time. And, the other thing is, in a wrestling match, a 7-minute match could really last 15 or 20 minutes because you're going out of bounds, you're taking breaks, you're stopping. With a fight, it's just, once it starts, it starts. So you're kind of just learning to manage that time within the fight. And I think a lot of that comes from just adjusting your rounds to being, instead of 2, 3, 4 minutes, they're 5, 6, 7 minutes. And you're just the volume, like I said, is different, but it's still, wrestling is easily the hardest conditioning discipline, in all the disciplines. If I just make a guy wrestle me for 45 seconds, they're pretty much toast just because I'm pulling on their head. They're not used to that stuff. Versus for me, it's a little easier to be able to hang in there with the striking or with the jiu-jitsu just because it's not as taxing. But if I make a guy wrestle me that's not a wrestler, it's like 1 minute and they're done.
Yeah. One of the
now
questions
I'm sorry I cut you off, but for training, conditioning, stuff like that, did you do, same stuff that you did just for training wrestling? I'm sure not the exact same, you do, I'm sorry. Just like adding new things, stuff like that, but same type of conditioning, training stuff, things like that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's pretty much the exact same conditioning training, just bike work, weight training stuff, circuits, all of that. I would say literally the only difference I do is the rounds, right? And even when we were wrestling, we would still do longer rounds. Sometimes we do a 10-minute go, and so for me, it's the same thing. It's like I kind of start out the base as 3 minutes. Like the shortest round I'll do is a 3 minute round, but I'm trying to do a little bit longer rounds, and I do a few more of them. So instead of doing 3 threes, I'll do 3 5s, or I'll do 5 5s, or stuff like that, or I'll do maybe like 8 threes, and it's just a different pace. So those things are adjusted, but it's honestly very similar.
Okay.
As you start getting a lot of respect, I feel like a lot of the elite wrestlers that have had MMA success, John Jones, Daniel Cormier, you're seeing their respect for you at scale continue to rise. I love the conversation between you and Cormier. I think it was like the day before, where it was almost like a pep talk, but it wasn't. But you could tell like there was a lot of passion there. And I'm curious, if I had to guess what the media is going to hone in on next week, is going to be expectation a lot, and not necessarily for yourself, because you've said a million times, you and you believe you're going to be a world champion, and this is all just a part of the process and nothing changes that. But I think what slowly changes is the fans' expectations, because it's always like combat sports is relentless. It's people that are a very "what have you done for me lately" crowd, and they are very hesitant to get behind you. And then when they do, they're all in. Early on in a career, whether it's wrestling, MMA, whatever, there's a lot of like, well, can he do that again? Well, now he's going to be tested. You kind of saw it with Jake Paul. Like, as he goes into combat sports, people continue to say, well, now he needs a real opponent. Now he needs this. What do you make of the expectations and hype around you the second time around?
Right. Yeah. I think that this is something that I do think about, that I feel like I'm well prepared for, just because going through high school wrestling, college wrestling, it's a very similar thing, right? Like you have expectations, and people say certain things about, oh, well, how will he do in college? Or, this school's recruiting him, that school's recruiting him. Then you get to school and it's like, oh, well, he can do that, but what happens when he wrestles this guy? Or, can he do that for multiple matches in a row, multiple seasons in a row? And one thing that Coach Kale talks about a lot, that Cenzo knows, is you're always building your reputation, right? You're building that reputation and how you compete and what people think. And I felt like towards the end of my college career, nobody even came out to beat me. They just came out to not get pinned. And because of that, I wasn't even worried about winning and losing. I was just worried about competing, and nobody even really tried to beat me. Like, even when I wrestled Colin Moore, I wrestled him 3 times my senior year. I think the first time he came out, he was coming out to beat me. So he shot right away, boom, boom. Then I pinned him. The second time, he was like a little more hesitant, and he got an escape right at the end of the match and to not get majored. And so I think he was like happy with that. He was like, oh, I only got beat by 7. And then the NCAA finals is kind of just like, let me just keep this close, right? And so that's the same thing I want to do with fighting. Is I just want to keep building my reputation as a fighter that is all effort, and who is dangerous from every position, who I can finish guys like as soon as, or from anywhere, whether that's with striking, with jiu-jitsu, with ground and pound, and somebody where if I take you down, you're not getting up. So these are a lot of things that I'm trying to just build my reputation. I haven't had a lot of time to do it because I finished everybody quick, but I think as I continue to compete and continue to do these things and prove myself time and time again, that the fans will understand that and respect that. And I already have a great following with Penn State and with wrestling. And so I already have that really solid foundation of people that want to see me succeed. And I think more and more people are just going to jump on board as I continue to prove myself and really build that reputation. And I'm sure, there's already a lot of fighters taking notice of it. They got to pay these guys extra money just to accept the fight and stuff. So, I just want to keep building that. And like I've said this a few times in this interview, but just always, be myself.
Yeah.
I think you're doing a great job with the reputation already, pal.
Thanks,
yeah,
brother.
No, I think so too. It's crazy how much similarities, differences there are, even in the fans. Like the wrestling community, I feel like is coming more and more behind MMA.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like sharing that locker room with John Jones? Like, I know, you mentioned in a couple of interviews about how he was he had people praying and going over scripture. And as a Christian, I got to imagine, like, yeah, it's one thing. It's cool to be around somebody who has such a legacy established, but to also then be able to relate to them on the faith level and share scripture and stuff. What was that like for you heading into the fight?
Man, it was honestly crazy. So I got into the locker room and they have your locker set up with your names on them and stuff. And there was one other guy in there, but he left for his fight quick. And then for like 3 hours, it was just my locker and John Jones. And I'm like, oh, this is sick. Like I'm sharing a locker room with John Jones. Like that's so crazy. Just as somebody that I watched when he debuted in the UFC when I was probably like 12 years old. And now I'm sharing a locker with him. And he's, arguably one of the, if not the greatest fighter of all time, certainly one of the greatest fighters of all time. And that's just exciting. And so it was probably 30 minutes before I was about to walk out. And he just rolled in with a crew. And I was like, dang, I rolled in there with 3 guys. That's all they let me have right now. And, he rolled in with like 30. And I was just like, dang, this is insane. He's got a squad. And, they had all these sheets of paper with Bible verses printed on them that they were taping up all around. They're like, you cool with this? I'm like, yeah, for sure. Like, I'm very cool with this. And then it was, a couple minutes before. Oh, and then he rolled up and we were going to wrestle a little bit. And then we just kind of play wrestled and dapped up. And he was like, hyping me up. And then right before I was about to walk out, maybe 5 minutes, he had his pastor there from his home. And he was like, yo, will you pray with us? And I was like, yeah, for sure. Let's do it. And then the pastor prayed. And then that was just like great energy. So his whole squad brought a great energy in. And I just felt, that definitely gave me a lot of confidence just being around a guy like that who competes at such a high level and who's done it so many times. So yeah, that was a really, really cool experience. And very grateful that I got to, have that, especially in my first fight in the UFC.
It was sick watching it on like Embedded and stuff, because even if I don't watch a fight, I'll watch Embedded all week. I think it's some of the greatest content produced. And seeing that throughout the week, even where I think it was like you guys ran into each other the day before, and seeing some of that interaction was so cool. Training in the Penn State room, I feel like you kind of have an advantage here. We'll call a spade a spade. I think all 3 of us can agree State College now has the greatest wrestling room in the world. I don't think anybody can argue that there's a better wrestling room. And for you, a lot of wrestlers have MMA gyms as their home gym. What's it like for you where it's like, yeah, you have American Top Team now in State College, your gym, but you also are very focused in the Penn State room. You're putting out a lot of content in there. You're training in there. What's that like? And do you feel like that's an advantage that it's like, even though you're not just, you're wrestling as a part of your MMA, but you're wrestling such a big part of your life, and to still be around teammates and the young college guys, do you feel like that's a huge advantage that you're able to have?
I really do. For me, the goal was always to be able to stay in State College and train. And one of the biggest mistakes I think people make as wrestlers transitioning to MMA is they really lose their sense of being a wrestler, right? Like they start boxing a little bit, they start doing jiu-jitsu, and then they think they don't need to train the wrestling anymore. And then you see sometimes when they do that, they get exposed a little bit by guys that are actually training wrestling. And so for me, it's really important to, stay true to my roots and always continue to develop my wrestling, get better at it, because that's really my X factor, right? Like nobody's ever going to be able to match that as far as a fight goes. And, especially if I keep it sharp and keep working on it and then develop the other disciplines as I, continue my career. But I'm really grateful too, just to be able to be in a position where I can focus on other guys in the practice room and give back, because it's so different when you're training and wrestling. And like, I'm not really trying to beat anybody, like it doesn't really do me any good to go into practice and like beat up a college kid. I'm trying to help, and
it's probably fun though.
I do it once in a while, me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, once in a while I got to win Dixie a few guys and stuff, and
no doubt.
See if I still got it. But I'm really like just there to help and there to, I'm getting taken down a lot more than I used to, for sure. Which is a little tough on my ego, but again, I'm trying to trying to help these guys, trying to help them get better and just be a good leader. And then, on my end in MMA, a lot of guys want to, take a similar path to what I'm taking. And so I'm really trying to trailblaze this path and make it easy for them, right? Because I have so many question marks and unknowns and things that come up that I wasn't prepared for. And, when these guys that are younger than me come up and they say, hey, I want to fight, like, no problem, bro. We got the blueprint ready. And I did all the groundwork. So now you can come in and be even better than I was, hopefully. If I win, a belt and have 5 title defenses and make, $100 million, I hope the next person, has 20 title defenses and makes 200 million. That's the goal for me, is to kind of grow this team and this culture at ATT and in conjunction with Penn State, and really help it be better and better for all the guys that are coming after me.
And you guys have like quite a few guys that are interested in fighting. I know, like, Carter and Roman and stuff like that. And, I'm excited to see them. But what I'm most interested about the Penn State wrestling room right now, though, is the dodgeball situation. Like, who's running the room in dodgeball
Dude,
at the moment?
You'll be shocked, bro. So basically, I don't get in as much as I used to, dude. I was like a fourth.
That's a shame.
I know. And me and Tony were running it, bro. And it was like easy work.
You guys were good. It just depended on who I found as a partner for the day.
Yeah, dude. you had Mark. You guys were solid there for a little bit.
Me and Gino were tough.
He's a little sneaky guy.
He's good.
Dude, so the wrestling room situation right now is really interesting, because there was a long time where college was severely outnumbering NLWC and coaches. And so we were kind of getting mopped up, and I was getting really frustrated because David Evans was running the show. And I was just like, what is this? How is David Evans the enforcer? Nobody will throw at him. And even the NLWC guys. And I'm like, if you guys don't throw at Evans next game, I'm coming for you. I just got to let you know. But it's just been real hectic because, like I said.
Do I need to come back for a few days?
Yes.
Play some dodgeball?
Real, bro.
All right.
Back.
All right. I'll just come for some dodgeball.
Freaking lay down the law.
Those are good times.
So a part of the blueprint for me that if I look at it from the outside, I'm really amazed at how widespread your blueprint is. So a lot of people love him, a lot of people hate him, but Jake Paul, Logan Paul turned into absolute mega stars with tens of millions of followers. They started off, and I remember, I've always been into content, not necessarily following and watching so much, it's just seeing what people are doing, the trends. And I remember Jake and Logan coming up through Vine and YouTube and watching it, and to see what they've done now, where Logan's, WWE superstar, Jake's a combat sports guy. They're monsters. And now you're partnered up with Jake. You're involved with them on Better, which, by the way, I saw yesterday they announced they raised $35 million at a $300 million valuation, which goes to show you this is no just like little side project. Like, this is a very serious business. How did your relationship with Jake come about?
Yeah, so basically, they Better just reached out to me, and they kind of explained what they were, a sports betting platform that's supposed to be more user-friendly, more responsible. And, so they really have 2 branches to the company. They have the sports betting side, and they have the media side. I'm heavily involved in the media side, specifically the combat sports vertical. And, I was the first athlete that they signed, and that was, a really cool opportunity for me. So basically I'm just putting out as much content as I can with them. That'll be in the form of podcasts. I'm working on a show with me and Kassar where we just kind of chat it up, similar to what you guys do and stuff. And then in addition to that, I have a show where I'm traveling and meeting with guests and stuff, and kind of diving into their mindset on success. And, I've done a couple of those so far with fighters, and I would like to branch into other things, business and, maybe like music artists or, other athletes and other sports and stuff, and just kind of tap into the minds of people that perform at a really high level. So that's kind of what I'll be doing with the company, and just trying to grow it organically and kind of spread that brand. And yeah, I mean, I've been really enjoying working with Better, and I was able to go down to Puerto Rico, film some content with Jake and his team, and he's a really cool guy. You know, I think he has a similar situation to what I have in Penn State with my gym, and you know, he's got his own gym down in Puerto Rico where he's training. He's got coaches. He flies in sparring partners and stuff. And so I think, you know, we have a lot of similarities on that training end. It's just, you know, definitely different. He grew up in LA and I grew up on a wrestling mat. But again, it's like I said, we have a lot of common ground, and it's fun to work with him and kind of see what his mindset is like in regards to content and media. And I feel like, you know, as a young guy, he's done so much. So he's definitely somebody I try to learn from a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that want to go into WWE, for example, but they don't understand the content side, like how they speak, how they carry themselves. Jake has such a huge advantage because of he did create a huge following from creating content, that now he knows how to push buttons. And he, like a WWE heel, he can make you hate him based on what he says, and he feeds off it. And he knows, like, there's a lot of very successful pro wrestling guys that have always said that they don't care if you boo them or cheer. They just want the reaction. And I think Jake understands that really well. And everything I've seen you do with the company so far, like the podcast you put out today, I loved it. And by the way, so one thing I loved about it was the Lego implementation, where you used it as part of the whole thing. Like, I've always told people, if I could do an on-person or in-person podcast, I would love to do it over something. Like, we're doing a podcast, but we're trying a new expensive high-end wine, and we're talking about that while we're talking. So I love that. Whose idea was it to work in stuff like that?
Yeah, that was my idea. So pretty much all the podcasts, idea wise, the creative side of it, they've left that to me, which has been really
that.
cool. Interesting.
That's awesome,
yeah, basically, you know, the idea behind that was, if I'm going to interview somebody and talk to them about their mindset and get deep, I don't want to just sit across from them and ask them questions, interview style, the way, you know, it typically is done. I want to get them comfortable, get them in an environment where they feel safe. They feel like they're doing something they enjoy, and then kind of figure out ways to tie that in to maybe the way they grew up, and just the way that they view their sport, and the way that they or the way that they view their profession. And so for me, it's all about creating an environment where my guest is feeling like very themselves, because that's what I want to tap into. You know, it's easy to sit next to somebody and ask them, like, how'd you get to where you are? And they're going to say, oh, well, I worked really hard and I put, you know, long hours in, and I had a really good coach or a really good mentor. And it's like, that's the same thing. But you get somebody comfortable, you get somebody relaxed, and they're doing something they like, then, you know, the conversation just flows a little better. It's a little more organic. And so that's my goal with whoever I do the show with, you know, whether they like bowling or darts, or maybe they really enjoy cars, you know, try to do something that they like, and then, you know, make it fun for them as well.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's just, so you had Brandon Moreno on for the first episode, which if you haven't listened to it yet, go listen to it. It's on Bo's YouTube channel. I don't know how much of that was just, he seems like an awesome guy, so I don't know how much of that was his personality. But
he does seem like a cool dude.
You definitely got him like out of his shell if he had one. And like, you could see the reactions. And I think that's huge to have people on who you can get that reaction, because it is boring. I've had people on that have no personality before, but they maybe have a huge accolade that people want to hear from. So you have them on, and then you're trying to pull stuff out of them. People are like, why didn't he go into this? Why didn't he go into that? It's like, listen, I can only do so much. They're going to talk about what they want to talk about. It's not always the easiest thing to bring it out of them.
Yeah. And I think that people in their mid to late 20s now, a lot of, you know, we didn't necessarily grow up on social media as much as the got people a little younger than us, but I think we have a good enough understanding of it to where when we're doing an interview, we're almost all media trained. Like, even when we get to Penn State, like our media guy, Pat, he kind of gives us a rundown of what we need to talk about, and, you know, what we say, what we don't say. And so, you know, almost everybody really has some form of media training, especially people that are super successful. They've done interviews before and stuff. And, you know, for me, like, I kind of have almost a routine of how I talk, and when questions are asked to me, it's like the same answers, but that's just an interview sense of one-on-one with the person. But I think if you get somebody in a conversation, that's why it shows like Food Truck Diaries are so cool. They're eating something, like I did Food Truck Diaries. Yeah, I'm eating a steak. And it's like, then the conversation is so much different than what it would be if he's just sitting face to face and asking me a question. So that's really what I want to tap into. And I feel like content like that is just, for me, it's a better way to go about it. It's not everybody's style, but I just personally like that style of conversation.
I think it's
great.
Yeah, I think it's the best way you can do it. If I had like the time and resources to do an in-person show, it would 100%. If you look at what's the most mainstream in content, it's Hot Ones where they're trying chicken wings. It's Dave Portnoy's pizza reviews where they're eating pizza. Even Joe Rogan. Yeah, Kevin Hart, Joe Rogan's bringing in cigars. Like, there's a lot of aspects to it that I think that's a huge way to bring people in, both on the consumer side, watching it makes it more interesting, and the guest. So speaking of content and brand, I'm super curious about this. The business side of being a UFC fighter, being a wrestler, the business side, for the most part, is extremely black and white. Even with NIL in college, then you have like a subset of sponsorships in college, and or after college, you get kind of as much sponsorship money as you can, and try to win worlds, try to win Olympics, and then you're on to the next chapter. And a lot of guys struggle because there's not much experience. We've talked about this before with NIL and branding, but for you, there seems to be so much involved. You're constantly traveling to Florida. I'm sure you're putting people up to train with. And it's interesting because I think I saw you won like a $50,000 performance bonus or something for the last fight, but you're only fighting a couple times a year. So that's your main income. And you have to create all these sources of income, which if you ask very successful people, they say one of their biggest hacks to wealth is creating multiple sources of revenue. And to be successful financially, especially early on in the UFC, that kind of seems like a prerequisite. And you're doing it pretty well. You have Scrap Life, you have Better, you have the ATT gym, you have, weekly vlogs that honestly, they should be like 3 or 4 times a week. They're good. But what has that been like for you, kind of managing all those things and not getting distracted? And I'll say the next question for kind of a part B to that.
Right. Yeah. It's been really interesting. There's just so many opportunities in MMA that there aren't in wrestling. And I noticed a huge shift. There was really 2 huge shifts. There was a huge shift after my first pro fight, and there was a huge shift after my first UFC fight where I was realized that my world is a little different now, right? Yeah. After each of those. And I assume after this next one, it'll be the same thing where, there's a shift. So, I was patient with my endorsement deals and sponsorship deals and stuff. I really only had Scrap Life up until I had my first fight in the UFC. And so there was a lot of deals that were thrown my way that I turned down because I knew there was bigger opportunity on the horizon, and people were kind of trying to get me early and get me locked in before I really blow up. And I still feel like I haven't really blown up to the scale that I will, even by the end of this year, or, let's say the middle of next year. I think I'll probably be 10x where I'm at now. And so business wise and financially, I think that, what you said is very important, to diversify and make sure you have sources of income coming from different places. And for me, I'm never going to fight for a check. So, fighting is a passion of mine. It's something that I love to do. And yeah, the money is nice and there's big incentive there, but I don't ever want to put myself in a situation where I have to fight for money, because that's just not a position you want to be in. And it's not the mentality that I want to have to go into compete, because that's not what motivates me right now deep down. And I know that that'll be just not enticing to me when I don't need it anymore. So it's about, to me, creating streams of income that are going to allow me to live freely, that have nothing to do with fighting. So that's, businesses, real estate. I've been, buying rental properties and stuff. And I have a few businesses, like you mentioned, Scrap Life. You mentioned Better. I have a new CBD recovery lotion that's coming out. There's a great product. I'm hopefully eventually going to get into, we've talked about this before and I've been working on it for a while, but
steak seasonings.
Steak seasonings coming. I'm going to do knives, cutting boards, all different type of stuff like that, to where, you know, at the end of the day, hopefully my fight checks are a small percentage of what I'll be making overall for my income, and to where I'm not going to have to be relying on those. And, you know, that's the goal, right? Like right now, yeah, the majority of my income is coming from fighting, but I think by the next year, by, you know, 2 years from now, it'll be the opposite. It'll switch.
Yeah. And I think, like, you know, I read some of these articles and numbers, and I think they said like Jamie Pickett was offered like, I don't know, 75,000 to show or something for your fight. And it's like you said, people have to be paid and offered so much to fight you. Almost, it feels like they're taking it like, if I'm going to go out there and lose, this is what I want. But if you're fighting a couple times a year and you're not winning, especially $75,000, especially after taxes, isn't going to go very far. Like, a lot of money on the sponsorship side is contractor based. And, you know, I was having a conversation with a wrestler about, listen, you need to set up an LLC, and NIL money and all these things. If you get it, it needs to go through an LLC, set money aside for taxes. And all of a sudden it's like, wait, I got to have this expense and I got to do taxes. It doesn't go that far. For you, what's that focus like, where you want to be the best MMA fighter in the world and you want to be a world champion, and that's your primary goal? But if it's not financially, how do you balance those two things, where it's like, you know, I think about Cal's philosophy, right? Where he's always like, go out there and win and everything else takes care of itself. To that degree with MMA, you almost really can't do that. Like, you have to kind of diversify. How do you balance those goals where it's like, I want to be the best MMA fighter in the world over here, but I also am not doing it for the money, so I'm going to focus on a number of things over here?
You know, I think that they're not really, in my mind, the way I live my life and the way I balance it is those things aren't really superposed. They honestly work together. It's just about being the same person regardless of the situation. And so for me, my number one focus and priority is being the best fighter I can be. But at the same time, to do that, I have to live a balanced life, and I have to set myself up to where I can prioritize and I don't have to worry about other things. I don't have to run around and go try to figure out other ways to make money. And at the same time, I'm not chasing, I'm not grabbing. Like, I'm okay living the way I'm living now. Like, I don't need to buy a Ferrari. I don't need to live in a $10 million home right now. Like, I'm 27 years old. I
did say the nice Bronco. I like the Bronco.
I'm not gonna be like bumming it, you know, but I'm not gonna go crazy. And so, you know, I know this is a marathon, and it's just setting myself up and being smart, being wise, like you were saying. You know, there's a lot of different ways to, you know, protect your money and invest it and put it in things that are gonna help you tax wise and stuff, and save you a lot of money at the end of the year. I have a great like the same way I have a great team for fighting and for wrestling with my coaches and stuff. I have a great team financially. I have a great accountant, great management team that helps make decisions and stuff. And, you know, I also enjoy just financial information and research and that stuff, because, you know, I want to have a good life for my family and my kids someday, and make sure that everybody gets to live the way they want to live.
Yeah, one thing I was going to bring up is that for you, you know, as you start coming onto the scene big time, I get the people that are like, wait, aren't you friends with Bo? Like, you know Bo, right? Like, all of a sudden you become more mainstream. And one of the things that I've always said about you is your both loyalty and humility has not changed. Like, I've known you for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years now. And it's like your loyalty has never changed. And you stay humble through NCAA championships, fight wins. Do you feel a tug to continue that? Like, I got to imagine it. I don't want to say it gets harder, but you do have more pressure as the spotlight gets bigger. Remaining who you are, you have more temptation, you have more offers. I got to imagine that as your brand and you continue to grow, it's got to be harder to kind of stay centered and stay focused on what you believe in.
You know, I feel like a lot of people have said that and, you know, assumed that. And I don't really feel that because, you know, I'm still in State College, Pennsylvania. I'm still the same guy I was. You know, I'm mowing the lawn every week. I'm doing normal things. And that's how I like to live. And I have I have a lot of great people around me that, you know, are grounded in the same way and, you know, who share a lot of the same values and faith and things like that. And so, I feel like, you know, staying true to myself and being myself hasn't been crazy difficult. I feel like I've grown a lot for the better and let go of a lot of things that I held on to tightly as a younger guy. I think one thing that has really hit me hard the last year or so is not being super judgmental towards other people, because I felt very, very judgmental and like, if you're not doing things the way that I think you should do them or the way that I'm doing them, then like, what are you doing? Like, why would you do that? You know, and just like, it took me a lot of growing up to realize that everybody's on their own path. And so I feel like that just has a lot to do with, you know, the people that I put myself around and, you know, just always being open to criticism and being, you know, open to like different views and stuff like that. And I feel like that, you know, that's what has changed in me and my heart a lot as of recently. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, when I look at who I am and kind of what I want people to think about when they think of me, it really doesn't have anything to do with my accomplishments or anything I've done in athletics. I really just want to be a good husband to my wife, and I want to be a good dad to my kids someday. And you know, that is much more important than being a great fighter or being rich. And so, yeah, I mean, I always keep those things on the front of my mind, and, you know, I try to align my decisions with those things and not really judge other people of if they want to, you know, make different decisions other than that, just being open and caring about people. And that's just kind of what I think about now. And I feel like it helps me stay grounded, stay centered.
I love it. A couple quick questions. We're going to let you go. Roman Bravo Young grapples tomorrow night, UFC Fight Pass. How excited are you for him to make his grappling debut as he slowly starts to move to MMA?
Yeah, super excited. You know, I think that Roman obviously is known as a electric, you know, high flying, exciting wrestler that has an amazing style, so fast, so quick, athletic, super technical, super smart. And I think that his style works really well in jiu-jitsu. He's got a great feel. And so I think he's going to surprise a lot of people with how well he competes. I definitely expect him to dominate. And, you know, there's no rush. He's a really young kid. And when he wants to get into MMA and if he decides on getting to MMA, I think he will, but, you know, we'll see. I think that he'll be incredibly successful. So this is a great first step. This is kind of similar to the way that I did it with taking a couple grappling matches before. And yeah, I think that, you know, he's such a smart guy, such a talented guy, and just a really good dude that whatever he puts his mind to, he'll be successful at.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I'm excited, and I'm just gonna go off that he loves to train and loves to compete.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's gonna be great at whatever he decides he's gonna do, and that's my 2 cents. I'm pumped to watch him.
But what a lot of people don't know about Roman, they see him compete, and, you know, Cenzo knows this, and I know this, is he is a grinder, bro. He's in there.
He works hard. Yeah.
Yeah. You wouldn't necessarily, I don't know, he's not really known for that, because I think almost his athleticism and other stuff overshadows that, but he's in there, man. He's working. So yeah. he's gonna do well, no doubt.
I remember last year, I think it was last year after NCAAs, maybe this year, he told me, we were just talking casually, we talk all the time. He's like, yeah, I'm doing a triathlon. I'm like, what? Are you crazy? Yeah. What do you mean triathlon? A lot of people, and I get the question, and I've probably been asked it before, where a lot of people love to ask about who you're most excited for, you know, Penn State wrestlers, current college wrestlers going into MMA. Carter, Nolf wants to go. You know, a lot of wrestlers who make it very known they want to go to MMA. I'm curious for you if there's somebody who you know isn't going to go to MMA or right now doesn't want to, but you'd love to see them go into MMA.
Man, There are a lot of guys. The hard thing about MMA, as far as, wanting guys to go into MMA, is that getting into an athletic competition and kind of being like, all right, yeah, get like forcing a friend or a buddy to be like, let's go play soccer or let's go play basketball. It kind of just ends up a good time no matter what. But if you really tell somebody, hey man, you should get in a fight, and then they get hit in the face, and then they get a little tired and then it doesn't go well, it's like, that's not fun. It's not like playing basketball or soccer. It's not a
Right.
good. So I really don't. There's nobody, even the guys that have told me, yo, I want to fight. I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight. I'm like, okay, like, we'll see. Like, get in the gym. Like, that's it. Like, I don't really like
Yeah.
grab anybody and be like, yo, you need to fight. You need to fight. I think it's in everybody's heart. And if it's really on your heart and you really want to do it, then you're going to do it. You're going to make it happen. I'm sure a lot of people didn't believe me that I was going to fight until I took my first fight, and a lot of people are probably like, nah, like that ain't really happening. And then, until I did it. And even for me, it's like a question mark until you actually do it. And so that's the mindset I like to have for that, is I'm not pushing anybody to do it, even no matter what. Even if you tell me like you're dead set on it, okay, I'll believe you when you step into the cage in a fight, and then it's on. But until then, it's like, I don't know.
Who
It's
do you
not real.
think under the radar could be really good in MMA?
Don't say me.
I was gonna say you, dude. Honestly, I was honestly gonna say you. I know Cenzo was getting the hands going a little bit. Last time he was up here, he was getting them working.
We were working on it.
Yeah. I met Cenzo
we're
to get him
getting.
going. Obviously, like you brought him up, he hasn't fought yet, but I would love to see Nolf in a fight. He's an
Same.
animal. So
Me too, man.
that would be fun. I think there are a lot of good guys. A guy that has talked to me about it a few times that I think would be super fun to watch is Mike Machiavello. Literally the nicest dude in the world,
Ooh,
but
He'd be
yeah.
so fun to watch.
he's been training hard and he's been grinding. So I could see him fighting, sometime soon. It would be fun. But yeah,
That's a good one.
if there's a wrestler out there that wants to fight, hit me up. Like, I would love to help anybody. I mean, I'm not that far into my career, but I want to help anybody that is a wrestler that wants to get after it. And even if you don't come and train with me or whatever, I'll help, as much as I can.
All right, last question.
I'm gonna ask one too after. Sorry, we're
All right,
only
you go.
two more.
Go ahead.
All right. Mine's a little different. So like, just being a fighter, I'm sure you're like, into the sport as well. Are you like excited for the fight card that you're on? Because it's crazy. Like, you're on an awesome fight card.
Yeah, dude.
You're on an awesome card. Guys like Robbie Lawler are prelim. Robbie Lawler was a UFC champ whenever we were in college.
Crazy. It's insane, man. The weird part about a fight card that you're on is you don't get to watch the fights. So it's like almost disappointing. You're like, dang it. Like, my last fight card, I barely got home because I have to do interviews and stuff after the fight. And I got to turn the John Jones card on the TV. And I was like, I couldn't even see it. Like, so I was just waiting in the Airbnb watching, and it was like, I put it on and he was stepping into the cage. And I was like, oh, well, we got it. So that was the only fight I got to see. But yeah, so it's kind of bittersweet because it's sick. You're on the card. It's going to be hype. Energy's crazy, but you really don't get to see much. So I'll have to watch it back. Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. That's interesting. Yeah. Because it's like, you're, wrestling, you're a Final X wrestler. You're probably not watching all the matches at Final X either.
Right.
But like, yeah, that's interesting, man. Yeah. Because it's a great card, and I'm excited. I get to watch the whole thing. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Definitely.
I like that Brandon Moreno's on after you had him on the podcast, and now you guys are fighting on the same card. I don't know if that was intentional, but I noticed them. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool.
No, it wasn't. It was actually, it got announced after we did the podcast because we shot a few months ago. And then it got announced, and I was like, oh, that's sweet. And I saw him at a UFC event. Where did I see him at? No, I saw him at Vegas. He was training at the PI during the US Open. And I was like, oh, what's up, bro? Like, we're fighting on the same card. Like, let's go. And he was like, all hype. But yeah, it's
Bo's such a legit fighter now because he's calling the PI.
He's the PI.
He's such a UFC guy now. He's like the PI.
It's actually the Moreno fight's the fight I'm second most excited about.
Definitely.
Obviously, most interference, but I think that's going to be a scrap, man.
Absolutely.
I'm really Cenzo knows this a lot. I'm an early bird. Like I wake up super early and I go to bed super early. So as a
Watch the
fan,
fights on the West Coast.
not a bad idea. I'm super excited though that you're opening the pay-per-view, because then it's like if I fall asleep after, I'll catch everything else in the morning when I wake up. Like I'll rewatch it. It's sometimes torture if I'm exhausted staying up for the main event. I love that. Like I know that you're going to keep climbing on the card and you're going to keep fighting later and later. It's going to be like, it's not advantageous to my sleep schedule.
Oh man. Yeah. I like being early too, because, I want to I just want to fight. I don't want to sit there for 7 hours. There was, I think like the NCAA wrestling tournament, there was a couple times where I was the last match of the night and everybody leaves. Well, actually my sophomore year, everybody left. Everybody went to the Penn State after party and stuff. And I was stuck trying to do a drug test for till midnight, and it's the worst. So I like being.
Was I with you?
Yeah, I think you were.
I think I was with you.
We were sitting there until like 4 hours late. We showed up and it was like everybody's gone. We're like, okay. Whatever.
That was my freshman year. It took me forever.
It was, yeah. I don't know if you remember this because I think you finished a little before me, but the dude that was with me, it was like 3 hours late, and he was like, dude, just jump in the shower, and it might be weird, but I'll just watch you, and I promise you're gonna go. And I was like, okay, did it, boom. Worked. And I was like, yeah,
what a guy.
What a guy.
Yeah, what a guy. That's a great tactic for that.
Yeah, it was. It worked.
A little peek behind the curtain, literally.
Yeah.
All right, last question. Now that you've gone through the whole, I'm sure the first time around was very exciting, probably also a little overwhelming at times, but now that you've gone through the whole process, what are you looking forward to the most next weekend fighting again?
There's a couple cool parts that are really sweet that I liked last time. I think the ceremonial weigh-in was really fun. You get a weigh-in in front of a huge crowd. The press conference was fun. The face-off, all of that. It was all really exciting, a cool build-up. And I'm excited. I think this dude's going to talk a little trash and stuff. So I hope he does, because that'll be fun. So, my last guy was very respectful, obviously, and that's cool too. But, this guy I think is going to try to talk a little bit. So hopefully that happens. And then obviously the best part is just fighting, just being in front of the lights, in front of the crowd. And that's just like a feeling unlike anything I've ever felt. Hopefully do the post-fight interview with Joe again and bro out for like a minute with Joe Rogan. I listen to him so much, so that was crazy. Yeah, but honestly, all of that is a lot of fun. Definitely not looking forward to the weight cut, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
How is that?
It's easier than wrestling. Well, I'll say this: it's different than wrestling. My weight cut's harder now. I was wrestling 197. I weighed in 97. Right. It's so easy. So it's like a joke. Yeah. But now I'm 206, 208, and cutting down to 186. It's not fun, but you just get such a long time to recover. So I'm not really worried about it. I just take care of it, weigh in, and then I have 36 hours, and I'm good to go. But it's not fun getting down. Good to go. Yeah, it is what it is. Done it 1,000 times.
It's funny that you think Tresean is going to talk trash, because I didn't watch anything. I watched one interview he did after one of his fights, and I saw he's like, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'm so humbled to be here. I'm so grateful for this and that. It's funny how different some fighters talk. I'm not saying him in general, but just some fighters talk so different after, because they want to put on a show leading up to the fight. Like a fighter before and after, I like when they're the same guy. If you're Conor McGregor and you put on a show before, I want you to put on a show after. Don't change your tune. I'm very curious to see how you do when you get that first opponent who really pushes you, talks that trash.
Yeah. For me, it's like you said, I'm going to be the same person regardless. And at the end of the day, no matter what they say, they still got to fight me. So we'll figure it out, man. And if you want to talk crazy, for me, I'm not about the hug after, good fight, brother.
I don't like that.
Get off me.
I see that all the time, and
Yeah, I'm like, dude, I
Yeah.
got plenty of friends, man. I don't need any more. Like, I'm chilling. So, yeah, for me, it's like the same thing. Keep the energy the same. And you want to talk crazy? Like, all right, we'll see, man. We'll see if you're talking crazy when my elbow's driving into your orbital, and I'm on top of you, and you're gasping for air, and you're tired. And we'll figure it out.
You can tell Bo's press conference ready.
He's ready to go.
So
I think he's fight ready.
I'm ready, man. I'm excited. This has been a long training camp, so I'm ready.
Let's go, dude.
Yeah, let's do it for sure.
I'm excited because you saw the whole leading up to the fight, and then you saw all the media after, and now you get to kind of do it again. But it is interesting when this is what, your second fight of the year?
Yep. Yeah, second one of the year.
So it's like you're competing now second time, and it's already end of June, where it's like by this time, let's say in college, where you're competing all January, all February, all March, then maybe US Open April, Final X June. Like, it's crazy just compete. There's a lot of anticipation in the air.
Yeah, you got to make the most of it. So I'm ready.
Have some fun, dog.
Are we getting fight week vlogs next week?
Yeah, we'll do a couple. We'll do, I think, 2. Okay. So yeah.
Keep you guys up to
date. Yeah, I appreciate y'all. Yeah.
Can't wait to watch.
Great chat, boys.
Hey, I love being back. It's great chatting with you guys.
Go and watch Bo's podcast. It just came out today on his YouTube channel. He's also got Steak Sundays, a whole bunch of other fun stuff. And for all the Cenzo fans who've been complaining he's not been on, he's back. We're going to do some more episodes coming up. Shout out Cenzo's mom. She always reshares the episodes. I love it.
That's what I said. That's the fan that's been asking me to be back on.
Yeah, the number one fan. Is that her with the burgers on YouTube?
Who knows? I'll see you guys later.
All right, guys. Later.
I'm taking off.
And the beat goes on.